So in this video we'll be looking at how to find percentage of an amount using decimal multipliers. So finding percentages of amounts using decimal multipliers. So this method is really useful when you're not only using a calculator to find percentage amounts of a quantity, but also for high level percentage questions such as using a calculator to calculate a percentage increase or a reverse percentage question. Now, going back to what you may have been taught at a lower level or in previous years of finding percentages, depending on how your teacher has showed you, usually the common method of working out percentage of amounts, so for example, as you can see, we're going to try and find 30% of 60, is that typically what we do is we first of all divide 60 by 100, and what that does is it tells us what 1% is. And then from that, what we then do is multiply that by 30 because we're actually wanting 30%. So from this, now in terms of decimal multipliers, now what we can do is when we are multiplying and dividing a la sort of BIDMAS, the order doesn't really matter. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to swap this divided by 100 and I'm going to take it to this side here. So what I actually get is 60 times 30 over 100. Now, what this decimal multiplier actually is, it's converting this part here into a decimal. So what we want to do is convert into a decimal. And what that then does is this gives us our decimal multiplier. So this bit here is our decimal multiplier. So if we then apply that, so before we actually start working out amounts, it's really important that you're able to work out and convert percentages into decimals. Now, one way of working that out, so a decimal multiplier is a decimal equivalent to the percentage. So it can be found by dividing the percentage by 100, but it's pretty easy to be able to do this in your head and by simply moving the decimal point 2 places to the left, making the number smaller. So, for example, you will spot a common sort of pattern in this. So in this particular case, we're going to do 25% and convert that into a decimal. Now what I could do is, what I'm theoretically going to be doing is 25 divided by 100, and if I start with 25, now when it says about moving the decimal point, I'm going to move it 2 places, meaning that the decimal point is going to go there, giving me an answer of 0.25, and that there is your decimal equivalent. So with 62%, if I do the same, so if I do 62 divided by 100, or I move the decimal point 2 places, I get an answer of 0.62. Converting 50% into a decimal, I get 0.50. Now if I call that 0.50, you might start thinking of a pattern. Now with 5%, a common mistake that people make is they just think, oh, I know what the pattern is. It's going to be 0 point and whatever the percentage is. Now unfortunately you always get found out with that sort of theory of when you're dealing with single percentages, single digit percentages, and also with decimal percentages as well. So here the common mistake that people make is, oh, it's 0.5, but the problem is that this answer and this answer are both exactly the same. That just because this has only got one single digit after the decimal point and this one's got 2, the 0 at the end doesn't really make a difference. So this could also be written as 0.5 as well. So that there is completely wrong. Now what we need to do is write the percentage as a sort of 2-digit number. So it's actually going to be 0.05. And again, if you're ever unsure, all you need to do is simply do 5 divided by 100. So if I start off with 5, my decimal point is there like a full stop, and I move the decimal point 2 places and fill any empty gaps with zeros. Now when it comes to decimal percentages, again, what we're doing here, so if I write down 82, well, let's not do it there, let's do it underneath. So if I have 82.3, now you can see that decimal point is here, and I'm going to move it 2 places. That's 1, 2, so the new decimal point is going to go there, and I start it with a 0, so this is going to be 0.823. Now let's just highlight these answers. So here with number 6, we're working out 2.3%. So this is going to be 0.023. And again, if you're not too sure, where that's come from. I've got 2.3 and I'm moving it 2 places. So the decimal point is, oh, it's a big decimal point, is going to go there, and I fill out any empty gaps with zeros. So 92% is going to be 0.92. 0.5%, well, this is going to be 0.005. And again, if you're not too sure, 0.5, I'm moving it 2 places. So that's 1, 2. And again, fill out any empty gaps with zeros. 120%. Now, obviously, the common thing is that with maths and percentages, people always think that 100% is always a maximum. I remember when teachers or parents always say you always need to give 110%, it just means you've got to go that little bit extra. So that these types of percentages do exist. So 120% would actually be 1.20. And again, if I had the notion of 120, the decimal point is there, moving it 2 places. So again, it becomes 1.2. And for 314%, well, that would be 3.14. So as you can see, there is a common sort of pattern, but try not to get into the misconception or the error of thinking, oh, it's just 0 point and whatever the percentage is, because when you start moving on to single digit percentages or with decimal percentages, that method is kind of flawed. So always try and think about the moving the decimal point of 2 places if you're ever unsure. So if you'd like to have a go at converting these questions into decimals, and while you're doing that, I will correct the numbering of these questions. I have no idea why it's done that, but there you go. So if you'd like to have a go at these, or pause the video to have a go at converting these percentages into a decimal before I go through the answers. So the answers you should have for each of these, so 75% is going to be 0.75, 45% is going to be 0.45, 60% is going to be 0.6, or you could really have 0.60, but again the zero is doing absolutely nothing, so 0.6 is probably a better answer. 6% is going to be 0.06, 19.2% is going to be 0.192, 32.5% is going to be 0.325, 8% is going to be 0.08, 0.1% is going to be 0.001, 145% is going to be 1.45, and 256 is going to be 2.56. So there are all your 10 correct answers. So moving on from that, let's have a look at working out some actual questions. So here what we're going to do is we're going to use decimal multipliers to find out the percentage of an amount. And obviously you can use your calculator. So what I'm going to do is just simply type in, or well, show you what you should be typing into your calculator, and we will go from there. So for 24%, what we need to do is simply convert this, let's go for red. So we're going to convert this 24% into its decimal equivalent, which is 0.24. Now of means times, and we're just going to do 0.24 times 150, and if we type that into our calculator, we get an answer of 33.6. So the answer there is going to be, and remember, don't forget the units, it's going to be 33.6, which is what our calculator shows. But as this is a money question, we always need to make sure we're writing it as to do decimal places, and there is our final answer. For question 2, 7%, so converting this would be 0.07, like James Bond. Of means times, and we're going to do 1340. So again, I'm going to type this exactly into my calculator. Now, if you do 1,340 times 0.04, doesn't really make a difference, because when you're multiplying, the order in which you multiply numbers does not affect your final answer. So again, the correct answer for this is going to be £93.80. And for question 3, so again, converting this into a decimal is going to be 0.3634 times 54. So again, type that into my calculator, and it gives me an answer of 34.236 kilograms. Now, if this was a money question, I would round it up to 34.24, because obviously you can't have sort of decimal, more than 2 decimal places on a money question. But as this is kilograms, I'm just going to write down the full answer. Now with question 4, so this is where we've got a bit of more of a wordy question. So it says sweet popcorn contains 22.2% fat, 12% fibre and 5.7% of protein. So if a large bag of sweet popcorn weighs 240 grams, calculate the amount of A, fibre, B, protein and C, fat. So with regards to this, let's just highlight. So what we're doing for A, so A translated and related to the previous three questions is what I want to work out is I want to work out what 12% of 240 grams is going to be. So what I'm going to do, type this into my calculator, I'm going to do 0.12 times 240. Now with these types of percentage questions, it's always important that you use an element of common sense. So I'm thinking of 12% is quite close to 10%, and 10% is going to be 24. So I'm looking for an answer that's going to be close to 24. So it's just a little sort of notion that you should be thinking of to make sure you're checking them, that you're not mistyped anything. Because with calculator questions, you tend to have a lot of faith in your calculator. So the answer you should have is 28.8 grams. For B, we're looking at protein. So protein is 5.7%. So this is going to be of 240 grams. So again, what we'll be typing into my calculator is 0.057 times 240. So 0.057 times 240, and that gives me an answer of 13.68 grams. And again, if you're ever unsure, all you need to do, so to find the decimal multiplier, because obviously these are usually going to be on a calculator question, is just simply put the percentage and divide it by 100, and that will give you your decimal multiplier. So if you're ever unsure, just type that in if you can't do it in your head, but with practice you'll get there. And finally for fat, so here we're looking at 20.2% of 240 grams. So again, what I'm going to type into my calculator is 0.202 times 240, and you should get an answer of 48.48 grams. And again, it's always important that you don't forget the units and always check for rounding as well for your final answer.